My name is Ron Fox. I'm Executive Director of MATV, Malton's Media Center, and welcome to the third political forum that MATV put together. This is for the Council at Large. Please welcome everybody here at the Senior Center. Welcome, yes. Tonight's program should go about 90 minutes is our goal, and at this time, first of all, I want to thank everybody that participated in all the forums we did do. It's the first time doing ward forums, and we're very happy with the results. And again, we want to thank you all for coming out tonight for the last forum. And now, please welcome from the Asian American. Yes, I know I should have done my homework. Please welcome former Mayor of Fitchburg, Lisa Wong.
Thank you, Ron. I'm also known as that person who did the school committee debate. But my name is Lisa Wong. I've had the pleasure to serve 4 terms as a mayor of the city of Fitchburg, so I know how important local politics is. We had a wonderful debate here just a few weeks ago for the school committee, so I'm very much enjoying being invited on the stage again to hear what our at-large city councilor candidates have to say. So let me just go over some ground rules tonight. So first is we have these wonderful microphones, so I want to make sure that all of you remember to turn them on so that we can all hear your questions and your answers. So we are going to start with an opening statement from each of the candidates. Then there will be a series of questions, some probing questions from our distinguished panelists over there. I will introduce in a minute, and then we will have closing statements, so pretty succinct. But the candidates know that they have 2 minutes for opening statements, 2 minutes for each question, and 3 minutes for closing statements. And if you see me waving these tags, the yellow tag is 30 seconds, and this will be to please stop. So first let me introduce our distinguished panelists. We have 3 wonderful individuals from media. We have Andrew from the Malden Observer. Thank you so much for being here. And we have Cindy, who is a senior at Malden High School, representing the beautiful. And Robert from the Massachusetts Senior Action Council. Thank you for being here. Will be introducing themselves in just a moment. I'm first going to ask our candidate number 1, and then number 2, number 3, number 4. So we drew straws, literally drew straws, and the tallest straw goes first, and so on and so forth. So our first candidate will be Steve Winslow, second candidate will be David Angelo, our third candidate will be Craig Spadafora, and our fourth candidate will be Debbie DeMaria. That will be the order, and then we will alternate that order throughout the night. So I'm first going to ask the first candidate, Mr. Steve Winslow, to give his opening statement.
All right, thank you, Mayor Wong.
Sorry, please turn on your microphone.
Thank you, Mayor Wong. I enjoyed working with you in Fun in Fitchburg in the programs I worked on through Massive Motion. This is an unusual situation for me. I'm the 9th of 12 children in a W. I'm not used to being first, but I'll make the best of it. I really want to thank the moderator, the panels, my fellow candidates here, and the audience here and at home for giving me this opportunity to talk about why voting Steve Winslow for Council at Large is going to make a difference for Malden and move Malden forward. You will learn tonight about how voting for Steve Winslow will ensure that the public's voice is heard before the City Council. You'll hear about how a vote for Steve Winslow will ensure that Malden has a plan for safe streets and to address our traffic congestion. And you'll hear about how Malden will be working towards ensuring that we have affordable housing for all Maldonians. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to the rest of the time tonight. Thank you.
Our second candidate tonight will be David Darkangelo giving his opening statement.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to MATV, Malton's Media Center, for putting this together, the panelists, my fellow councilors, and Steve. So it's great to be with you. It's David D'Arcangelo. Currently, he's one of the 3 city councilors at large here in Malden. I'm asking for your vote to return for another 2 years. Malden is on the move. Our housing values are up. Public safety is under control, and we're in a very safe community. We have one of the most diverse communities in the nation. These are all great things for the city of Malden. And we really want to keep that going. The city council dynamic now is a good one, filled with plenty of rigorous debate. We certainly don't always agree, but for you at home, that's a good thing. You want us debating vigorously, and that's what we've been doing. So, City of Malden is a big organization, $180 million corporation with a couple thousand employees. We've got some great schools, a great school dynamic with a great public K-8 system, the parochial schools that we have, the charter school, and even extended education with beauty schools and driving schools and other things going on in the city. So Malden is an education really powerhouse as far as I'm concerned, north of Boston. I want to keep it that way. My number one priority, though, is public safety. Consistently funded public safety. We have a new police station out on Eastern Ave. I'm very pleased to be taking an active leadership role with bringing to bear. And then there's other really great things going on in downtown with the development and other things around the city. So I think Malden is doing a great job right now. I'm asking for your vote to get back there for another 2 years. If you have any information, any questions, you can check out the information on my website, davidformalden.com, or please call me anytime on my cell phone. My personal number is 781-789-4580. And looking forward to talking about important issues tonight. And again, thank you, everybody. Oh, thank you.
Our third speaker tonight, giving his opening statement, will be Craig Spatafora.
Let me just explain everything. David can't see the yellow card, so I just have to let David know the yellow card. I apologize. Thank you, the audience. Thank you, Malden Access TV, distinguished panel. I apologize if I sound a little raspy. I am feeling a bit out of the weather. I'm a little bit more jovial when it comes to these things and passionate, so I apologize in advance. My name is Craig Spatafora. I've been a councilor at large now for 5 terms, and I'm looking to go for a 6th term. It has been a great experience for me. I am humbled every time I come up to this podium to get the opportunity to speak. Like Councilor D'Arcangelo said, Malden is on the move, but more importantly, I've been up here several times before, and I've been a bit negative and cynical of the way the community is going. I can honestly say now, the wind is behind us, and Malden is on the move, but more importantly, we're on the map. Our diversity, our infrastructure, our new buildings are absolutely making a difference for us, but more importantly, the people is doing it in the process. I want to continue that process and making sure that we have the ability to grow. We are centrally located not that far from Boston, and everything we've been doing over the past 10 years as a community, whether it be the council, the school committee, the mayor's office, has finally got us to this point. And there's a little bit of luck in there, but there's a lot of work. And I'm proud to have been around for some of that work. And we've built new buildings, and I'm very proud of those buildings. But more importantly, we've changed the ordinances to protect the neighborhoods. Building is happening. I think we're at a point where sometimes enough of one thing is not good. And I was proud to support the moratorium. But in the same token, we've been talking about redistricting the waterfront, increasing our schools, increasing our green space, and making Malden a great place to live. And I want to continue that mission. I hope for your support on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those great opening statements. We're now going to turn to our panelists. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Last but not least, definitely not last. This was a test of the city council candidates to see if they have.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Lisa. Malden Access TV, all the panelists, Andrew, Sydney, and Bob for being here tonight. Thanks to our viewers and to all those that are watching. To me, time spent is the best gift, so spending your time with me tonight is very valuable. It's been a long campaign season, but every constituent call and every email that I receive reminds me how important public service is to me. I am married to my husband Al for almost 39 years, a mother of 3, a grandmother of 3, and a proud resident of Malden. One of my recent successes was shepherding the community Preservation Act, from its beginning as a voter-supported referendum to the formation of the actual committee. This will allow our residents to make the improvements and decisions about our historical sites, our affordable housing, and our beautiful parks. As chair of the Citizen Engagement Committee, I have the pleasure of working with our arts community on projects such as our switch boxes. Aren't they beautiful? In Ordinance Committee, along with many other initiatives, we've been able to weigh in on possible locations for marijuana dispensaries and their potential tax benefits. One of our long-term challenges will be addressing our roads and our lead pipes. But as demonstrated by our efforts to rebuild and modernize the City Hall and police station, nothing is impossible. While I recognize the contributions of our long-term residents, including our veterans, I also welcome our new members to the community. I imagine Malden, where residents who hail from around the world and speak 70-plus languages, live in safe, respectful, and in harmony. That's what I imagine, and I thank you tonight. Ooh, that was fast.
And I thank you all tonight for your opening statements. So now we will turn to our distinguished panel, and the first question is going to be from Andrew, and he will be directing that question first to Steve.
Several weeks ago, a motion to allow public comment at city council meetings for the remainder of the year failed on a tie vote. Should a public comment period be allowed at meetings of the city council and its committees?
I would vote yes on that. I believe that we should welcome the public comment. I've been coming to council meetings, and I see people in the audience looking for ways to give input to the city, and I have not seen that being as effective, so I'm definitely supportive of that. I was on the school committee for 6 years for Malden. We had public comment at our school committee meetings that went smoothly. I work right now for the city of Gloucester. I go to city council meetings there. They have public comment. It works out. We as a council and we as a city can make a workable rule that allows that, because I think in this time where we struggle to have more civic participation at our local level, we should find every avenue we can to welcome the public. And to me, it's just about sending a message that the public is welcome in the public's house. So I am favorable to public comment, and I think it's something that we can work on. So that I'm very favorable to public comment.
David, you're next.
Yes, the same question. So thank you. So this is, I liken this, there were a few years back at the state level, there was a ballot initiative called Clean Elections, right? And I liken this to that. When clean elections went through, everybody said, oh, of course you want a clean election, and it passed overwhelmingly. But then people found out to implement it, wait a minute, hold on, we're actually publicly funding elections, and there's all kinds of strings attached, and we're actually limiting the amount of candidates that can take part. And all of a sudden, clean elections didn't work out really too well, and it never really got implemented or off the ground. And this is very similar to that. So while it sounds great on the surface, public comment, which I fully buy into public comment, by the way. I'm giving out my cell phone on live TV. I'll give it again, 781-789-4580. So please contact me, as people do at all hours of the day. So I'm very much in favor of public comment, interacting with the public. What I find problematic is the workability of this, in that we're now limiting people to 2 minutes. We're now limiting the amount of people. And we're not, and there's too many limits on that speech that I hold so dear and I cherish. And right now, actually, two nights ago, we had a perfect example. We had somebody that Councilor Matheson sponsored, really spontaneously, I don't think that was a setup, who came up and spoke for 4 or 5 minutes on a particular initiative she was working on in the community. And that worked out very well, and we've done that in the past. And I think we should just keep with that, because I think it's going to get very challenging with who's going to keep the time, how's that going to go. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Oh, I got more time, okay. so again, I'm very much for public interaction, public comment, hear from the public. I want to hear from you. The public is the boss. And, so I'm very much in favor of that. I just think it's very problematic to install it, and now we're limiting debate, and we're controlling how many times people can come up and the amount of people who can come up. And I don't want to limit debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Craig, you're next.
Thank you. Same question. Pretty easy. I was lucky enough to, I supported it. I voted for it. It was Councilman DeMarie's paper. It was an easy vote in my opinion. A couple of things I would say about this is, as far as the ability to come before the council, and I might be wrong, but I don't think a council has ever voted not to have somebody come before us, even without this rule. I understand that there was challenges that some of some councils voted against it. They were concerned about decorum. I think there's enough cities and towns that have this enacted with certain rules and regulations that we can easily make this arrangement happen. But I don't think anybody's ever stifled it. I do agree with some people saying they just don't feel as comfortable coming up without that ability or that rationale to use that time. So I support it. I would support it again. I do support it with rules. And the second thing is, talking about transparency. I've been a councilor, some say maybe too long, but I think the transparency in the city has been more now than ever. Over the last couple of years, before councils never were able, to get calls during the day or at night, not because people didn't want to, which is cell phones weren't as proficient and you didn't have social media. I actually talk to less people now than I did when I first got elected, and that's sad because more people want to send an email or go on Facebook. So I think transparency is greater than ever, and we've never had so many people come to council meetings, which I am thrilled at. The council put in a piece of legislation or an ordinance that allowed you to speak on a budget. And some people took it out of context. It's embarrassing that we pass a $180 million budget and only 4 people come to take the time, and that budget affects everybody in this room. But when you want to talk about maybe putting a speed sign up, 300 people pack the road. So I want more people to come. But transparency to me is an all-time high, which I think is great. And I don't think this rule is going to help, but I definitely think it would be something I am going to support again. Thank you.
All right, next we have Debbie.
Thank you, Mayor. So, public commentary, thank you for that question. Andrew, you know how important that is to me. Over the summer, I did lots and lots of research on that. I was the sponsor of that paper. I contacted 9 communities in the area and spoke with them at length as to how they offer it. And each community did do things differently. Some did it in committee meetings, some did it on the floor, some offered 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. But at the end of the day, out of the 9 communities that I contacted, there was only 1 that did not do it. I also sat on the school committee with candidate Winslow, and we did offer public commentary at every meeting, and there was never a problem. For the fears that I believe some of my fellow councilors have, there should be no fear to that. We are elected by our residents and our voters, and they have every right to talk to us, whether it's email or phone call or ring our door or come to a council meeting or a committee meeting. So I am thoroughly supporting that, and I very much am disappointed that unfortunately I was not at that meeting to push that vote over. But I look forward to the 6-month expiration where I can bring it back to the floor, and I do hope that you all are here to support it. Thank you.
Our second question will be from Sydney, and she will be directing that question to Dave.
I am interested in hearing whether or not you think the public schools have enough funding. If not, are you opposed to cutting funding for the public schools to help other areas of the city?
Great question, thank you. A question that's very important to me as my daughter is in the public school system. So I would absolutely not vote for any budget that cut unless there was some catastrophic thing across all of city government and all of city government. as it appears right now, we don't think that that's the case. We think that we're on a glide path. We did have to take a little bit more out of reserves last year, which is one of the reasons why I voted against the budget, actually, which was a tough vote. But no, I mean, I'm not looking to cut the school budget in any way. I think education in Malden is one of the things that's bringing new families into Malden. It's one of the strengths of our city. We should absolutely support it, and we have supported it, as a matter of fact, and I have some data to back that up. If you go back over the past 5 years, the percent increase for the school department is 23.24%. I mean, that is in real dollars. That is like $9 million more. So I've voted to increase the school budget. I'll continue to do that and support what our schools need, not only through the Chapter 70 and directly through the school budget, but also through other pieces as well. We did a technology upgrade for them a couple of years back. We also did some safety enhancements with cameras and things like that. I've been an advocate for some of the other things that we're going to need to think about. When I was an aide for our former state senator, Richard Say, in the state senate, I had the benefit of being able to work on the 5 new schools at the time, the K-8 schools. Well, those schools are no longer new, and now they're going to be start needing roofs and bathrooms and HVAC systems and all that type of stuff. So, you know, I'm a big proponent of let's develop a capital plan, both citywide and for the school department, so we can make sure we keep these valuable resources in place for our students and teachers. So, yes, I'm very much in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to Craig.
Thank you, Cindy. And let me frame the question this way. If you double the school budget next year, I'm not going to sit here and say I would support unequivocally increasing that amount. But do I support cutting the school budget? Absolutely not. What I do support, though, is we need to increase to a Tier 1 school. The superintendent was very clear, that is his goal. Level 1 school, excuse me, thank you. Level 1 school, and that is his goal. And that was the only thing he mentioned. So for me, whatever it takes in terms of whether it be dollars, but more importantly, how do we use those dollars to get from a Tier 2 to a Tier 1? For me, that's the only goal we should be working on right now. But more important, you know, when we talk about education, we know there's a funding mechanism problem with the charter schools. That's going to be fixed at the state level. We know there's more kids who need vocational training in this community and this state. We're not giving enough to the vocational school. They want to add on to that. That's more supplemental dollars. More importantly, if a child comes to the city of Malden after the date of October, we don't get any money from the state. So while we can give as much money as we want, we need help at the state level to help with all those additional costs. Because throwing money at any problem has never been the answer. I effectively think we can definitely give more funding, more support, but we got to do it the right way. And we have to get our state delegation to really help us. Whether it be fixing the formula for the charter schools, whether it be increasing the vocational spending, whether it be giving us money for special ed, second language ELS, or when a child comes into the city after October, we should get paid with it. We passed the budget July. That school budget has to go all the way to the end of July. If you have an influx of children mid-year, there's no money, and other things get cut. So I 100% support that and want to see that endeavor happen, making us level 1 school. Thank you.
Same question to Debbie.
Thank you. Am I on? Sorry. Okay, so thank you for that question, Sydney. As a previous school committee member, I thoroughly understand that that piece of our city budget is the largest portion of our budget. And the process is that the superintendent and the mayor work and craft a budget that fits the needs of the community, the needs of the students. A lot of times it doesn't make it. Last year I hugely advocated for our librarians to stay in place. And I also advocated for our nurses to be in our district. You know, it's a balancing act. So if you have so much, where do you go? So I think your answer was, would I support the funding of our school department? Absolutely. Our children are our future. They need every possible option to, whether it's, you know, ESL, whether it's our special needs program, whether it's our vocational program, which we've actually taken away, and I really do hope that we can fit that in. So simple answer, I will support it. I look forward to our new superintendent, John O'Terry, doing a great job crafting that and working through that budget process. They come to us, present it to us that the city council cannot add, but we can take away. And I have, for 4 years that I've been on city council, I've always supported our school department budget. Thank you for that question.
Great, and question will go to Steve last.
Yes, thank you for this question, Sydney. You know, communities that shortchange their school children are really shortchanging their future. So I had the benefit of a public education in an excellent school district out in California where I came from. And I had the honor of being a school committee member here. And I'm very committed to making sure that we have a strong funding for our public schools. The prosperity of Malden really depends on that. What I see, though, I mean, I've been on the school committee for a little over 3 years now. You know, at that time, we were cutting administrators, cutting costs to make sure we kept teachers in the classroom. I keep track with the school committee members I know now. And, you know, we've cut librarians. We've cut busing. I don't know what else the school committee can cut next year. So that's the type of thing. If we can't keep teachers in the classroom, I don't know how we're going to achieve tier level status for our schools. So we really have to think about that. So I like you know, the ideas. We do have to work with our state delegation to make sure we have a fairly funded Chapter 70 formula, that we have reimbursements for special ed and that. So we definitely need to work with our state delegation, and I'm supported by Representative Altrino. I worked to get Senator Lewis elected. I think the other thing we have to also look at is making sure we as a city have a strong tax base, and we're working to do that. And I think that we have to figure out going forward past the building moratorium to make sure we have a fair thing that we're building our tax base. And I've worked in several other communities, Somerville, Gloucester. I mean, Somerville just committed millions of dollars to improve their high school. They're doing a bond override there. We have to be creative on how we focus on things there and embrace the efforts of our parents in our schools to make sure we're working together to create strong schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our third question will be from Robert, and it will go to Fred first.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. When I was putting together my materials to prepare for this evening's debate, I started asking myself, thinking to myself, how long have we had councils at large? And basically, were they set up out of a necessity, or was it just something we've always done? Well, I was never able to find the answer to that question, and I wonder, as simple as that question is, I wonder if people could elaborate on that and educate me.
Well, that's a good question.
Thank you very much.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because a couple of years ago I did a research. It was tough to go back into the city charter to find out when it started. But talking to some of the founding members, and I'm being funny here, and some people who've been in this community for a long, long time, the thought was the government was set up almost as a bicameral system. Everett was known for that as well, where the ward councils would ultimately fight for their wards, and you had an even number. You got to remember there was changes too. Now you have 3 at-large councils, which makes it an odd number, which was supposed to come in and look at the problem or the issue from a citywide level and making sure that there was equality or a balance. So that was always the thought process I had there, and I think it works well. I'll give you examples. I mean, the ward council's job is to improve the ward at any cost, right? That's their job. It's their district. And I think what happens is the council at large, and speaking from experience, you come in and say, you know, we can't give all the money or all the services to one board regardless of where they are. We have to balance it out to the community. Just like the budget, it's a balloon. You have to move that around. And Malden has had their fair share of some parts of the city not getting enough funding and resources and representation. But I think the past couple of years with the council, we've been very constant in know that we wanted to get representation on our local committees and boards, not only from one area of the city, but more diverse part of the community and a diversity in terms of people on that board. And again, you go back to it, if you're the Ward 3 councilor, you only want Ward 3 people on there because that's your job. But if you're a councilor at large, you have friends and supporters all over the community, and you have to balance that out. Does it work all the time? No. But I think it is a pretty good system, similar to, I think, the way, Congress works. Not to be funny, but you have a Senate and you have House of Representatives, and there's supposed to be balance. So I believe that was the intent, and I may be wrong, but that would be my guess. You're welcome.
Same question?
Thank you, Bob. That is a really good question. And I actually have not been around long enough to be able to clearly give you the answer that is fact. But I do believe we have 8 wards in Malden, and there are 3 at-large councilors. So where there's a vote on council, that gives us that odd number to break a tie, let's say, in whatever we're voting on. I think it does work well. As an at-large councilor, I look at things a little bit differently than a ward councilor. I'm not quite so territorial. I look at a problem citywide. But again, it's a balance. I do believe, however, if you allow me just a minute, that on the school committee level, where we have 5 schools, public schools, as well as charters and Catholic schools, but we have 5 schools and we have 8 school committee members. So I really would like to see the school committee go more on a citywide charter. I think that would give them, more even workload and more even responsibility. So, that I thought about that over the year, and I think that would work a little bit better. But as far as Malden Council, our charter is written that way. I don't know when it really began that way, but it does seem like it is giving us checks and balances. At times I think wouldn't it be great if we were all that large and then we wouldn't be so territorial about our own board. But for now, it's okay. I think we really should focus on school committee foundation and their protocol and their mission. So not the answer we were looking for, but okay, thank you.
All right. Same question, next to Steve.
All right, Bob, I know when I asked the former city clerk Karen Anderson for a copy of the city charter, she said it was such a mishmash of legalisms that even as me as a lawyer, she said it's going to be too confusing to read. So I am not aware of that. But one of the things I can say is, I had the choice this year of running for either Ward 6 councilor or councilor at large. And what I always say to people is, Ward councilor can be the toughest job in politics. You have all the immediacy of your neighbors saying, is my trash being picked up? Is that snow getting shoveled, plowed on the streets? You have a lot of immediacy. So Ward councilors have a lot of that pressure to day in, day out deliver. One reason why I'm running for council at large is because we need councilors at large with a bigger vision. And through my work on the Vitamin C project, that not only is a big vision for Malden, but it has 5 communities. I've worked with a lot of local councils from Everett all the way to Berlin. So I know that important role, and I'm very respectful in making sure that city initiatives are really led a lot by the ward councilors. But the advantage of having councilors at large is that they can make sure that we as a city are working on a common vision. And I am that type of person, and I'm also a very creative problem solver. So I think that's the type of thing that councilors at large can bring, that type of thing to get the city knit together stronger as a community, and that's the role that they play. I think they also play, there is a lot of responsibility that falls on ward councilors, so they are also another avenue for people to get involved with the community and beat that. So I'm willing both to create some vision and support our ward councilors in the important work they do in their neighborhood. So that's why I'm running for council at large. Thank you.
question will next go to David.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Bob, for this question. This is a great question. I really appreciate it. So, in the senior suppers that we give around this time of year, we go around to many of the buildings that tend to house a lot of seniors. And one of the questions I ask is, what was Malden's original name? Well, it was Mystic Side, right? So Malden was incorporated back in 1649. So we have a community that's about 370 years old. So we still have remnants of that colonial era, really. And if you look at the city of Everett, which a few years ago changed their charter, which Everett, by the way, used to be part of Malden, right? They changed their charter a few years ago. They had the last bicameral municipal government in the country. So I think that what we're talking about here, the spirit of your question, is a leftover remnant of our what used to be bicameral system, where you have the local ward councilors, and then you have a house, if you will, and like a senate of the at-large councilors. And then the Council PoliticalForum lays a nice point here. I think that's the prerogative that we continue with today, honestly. When it comes to time of the 4th of July, we get to sit up here and say, oh, here's a check to go do the 4th of July, and we get to tour all the parks. When meanwhile, the ward councilors are out there sweating, cooking hot dogs in the sun. So I think that prerogative, though, helps us look at some of the bigger issues. Steve mentioned some of the bigger issues. So we get and sometimes there's a challenge and sometimes there's an opportunity to looking at those big city questions when it comes to interacting with our state delegation and looking at municipal finance laws, whether it be Chapter 70 or Chapter 90 for road funding or 40B when it comes to the development. So thank you for the question. I hope I answered it to your satisfaction, Bob. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Oh, sure.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, perhaps we should have some seminars on this same question after the election is over, because it is fascinating information. Thank you for your input.
Thanks, Robert. Okay. For question number 4, we're going to turn it back to Andrew, and he is going to direct the question first to Debbie.
What is your vision for the Malden Hospital site? How would you balance the revenue potential of that area against the needs of the residents who live there?
Great question, thank you, Andrew. So our Malden Hospital, for some of you that maybe don't know, is no longer. It's up on a hill in Ward 3. It's been vacant for about 18 years. My children were born in that hospital. I fundraise for Junior Aid Association for that hospital. Malden Hospital is so super near and dear to my heart. Over the last 10 years or so, we do not own Malden Hospital site. It is owned by Hallmark Health, which is now Wellforce. So they've had a change of ownership, and because we don't own it, the only stake that we have in the game is to make sure with our zoning and our ordinances that we say what is going to be built there. For 4 years I've been on council. After my first year, that question came up. So, do I have the exact vision? No. But what I've always advocated for is the community and the officials and Hallmark Health, now Wellforce, get together and communicate and talk. Where are we at? What are we doing? What can we do with this beautiful 18-acre piece of property, of which a little bit is slivered out of Medford? So I think that I've pushed that conversation, and I do believe we're that much closer to wrapping our arms around what we really want. It's such a beautiful piece of property, and I really look forward to being in office and seeing something great happen with that. Thank you.
Okay, the same question will be directed to Steve.
Yeah, my perspective on this is my granddaughter Hannah, who's known locally as working with a local Wallum Kung Fu studio. She's about to turn 20 years old, and she was the second to last baby born in Malden Hospital. So it's been something that's been sitting there vacant. I did tour it over the summer. We need to go forward. And one of the things I gotta say is that this next city council can no longer kick the can down the road. In 3 years, the city of Malden faces a very important time frame. We will cross below a 10% affordable housing limit, and developers will become able to do what they want in our city with very little input from our zoning. So we really need to get to work. I have worked on very tough situations in my jobs. In 30 years in government, I worked on key things in Davis Square. I worked at things here in Malden on Commercial Street. I am someone who listens to the community. I talk about neighborhood-led development. So I've met with people. I've walked Ward 3. I think people in Ward 3 want to go ahead. They need someone who's going to work as a creative problem solver. That's what I've done in Malden and other communities. We need a strong community planning process. I've looked at some of the funding proposals to have open space there. I made some very bold comments about that. I worked on funding open space and recreation projects in my job, so I can look at a budget and see whether it's practical or not. So we need to do that. We also need to make sure that we demand fair compensation for transportation, because one of the big holes up there is a transportation plan. And we as a city don't have a transportation plan that the developer can turn to help fund. We need to both work on transportation in Ward 3 and across the city. So that would be my plan, working the neighborhood, working as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David.
Okay, so I heard balance the needs there. I've got a flyer coming out. If you're a Ward 3 resident, you're going to be getting it. So my idea up there is, and I'm very near and dear to the Malden Hospital, by the way. I was born there. My great-uncle Frank Stella delivered me there. He was one of the a doctor up there for years and incorporated the hospital. So the hospital is very near and dear to me. And I know what type of an institution it was to the city of Malden. And really when it left, it took us a while to recover. And it was kind of something that not only the site itself, but all of the jobs and all of the infrastructure and support that went around the hospital as well. It really took us several years to be able to adjust to that. So one thing that's important about the site, I disagree. I don't think the council has kicked the can. Remember, we, the city of Malden, do not own the site. It is a privately owned site. So we control the development rights of what will go on up there. And we've been going back and forth and trying to find out what the neighborhood wants and trying to balance those needs. So to me, I agree, Drew, and understand your point of balance of needs. So what I would propose is, it worked for many generations as a campus-style atmosphere. What I mean by that was, people would come in the morning, do their work, and then they would generally go home at night. And yeah, it was a hospital, but it was still, people were contained on that campus. I'm very much in favor of, let's bring it back to a campus style. Let's put a Google, let's put an IBM, let's put some big conglomerate, North American headquarters there. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'll give you an example. When Wynn came in, they were originally calling it Wynn Everett. Well, now they're calling it Wynn Boston. Why? Because Everett really is an extension of Boston. And if you come from any place around the world, Malden is an extension of Boston. So if IBM relocates their North American headquarters there, it's going to be IBM Boston, right? So, but when you bring in that corporate atmosphere, you're not adding children to the school system. There's going to be very limited police calls, very limited fire calls. They're great landowners to have up there where they keep the property well. It brings jobs in. So the costs are low, the revenues come in higher. That's another reason why I favor that. Now, it's not as easy as it sounds. We've got to work with well force. There was a ballot question. I want to respect the will of the voters. We don't have the money, so we've got to try to come up with that. So
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, next is Craig.
Thank you. This is the Ward 3 resident. I was also born there, so it tells you how old I'm getting. I live right down the street, and I will start where I think Council Doc Angelo started. I don't think this council's kicked the can at all. In fact, I think it's a little bit insulting. The reason why I say that is the city has never had one plan come before the planning board in 12 years. The only plan that's ever come to us is a company based out of Plymouth. It had something over 500 units. And we had dozens of community meetings, and it was very, very clear to us that was not the answer. We understand that there is definitely a traffic problem up there. We also had plans of a community-based group here that said we'd match them, I believe up to $5 million. We have not been able to match them because they haven't raised $5 million. I've personally gone to Malden Catholic 5 years ago and sat with the headmaster, Mr. Tom Maria, and asked him to consider building a school up there. They said it would cost between $70 and $80 million. I've talked to the residents up there. Passive recreation, they're a little bit nervous of because we don't have a real good track record of keeping up our passive recreation, and security is an issue. If they handed the keys over to this community tomorrow, the numbers range from $8 to $12 million to demolish it. And we're going to talk about school money, we're going to talk about lead pipes, and we're going to talk about infrastructure money. I don't think spending $12 million to raise a building to have dirt there is not the right thing to do. I do think the way you could do it is if you went to Medford and asked them, and I have, to do a Pine Banks type of style, it'd be great. But until there's a real plan, again, we don't own that property. We asked for single-family houses, they've never come before it. So I think we have to be realistic in that approach. What I would like to see is maybe some senior housing up there, passive recreation, and single-family homes. That's the way you do it. But that is not the government's job to go build that. I'd be happy to purchase a piece of land and turn it to green space. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Cindy, you'll be asking our 5th question, and you'll be asking that first to Steve.
Hi, do you believe that the charter schools take away essential funding from our public schools, or are they a benefit to the community?
I believe both things. I live right up the street from the charter school, and the charter school, they give a wonderful education to the students who have the opportunity to go there. Unfortunately, I think the challenge is that not every student gets that opportunity because of the structure of the charter school. The charter school does not accept kids after 7th grade, so the public schools have the burden of, if we have kids coming from Puerto Rico because of the hurricane, they're not going to go to the charter school, they're going to go to the public schools. We have more special education kids in the public schools with IEPs that are not fully served. And I have a lot of friends who both have kids in the charter school and the public schools. I have friends that are very dedicated because of the great services that the public schools provide and the other opportunities. So, but I think the funding formula for the charter schools is skewed because there's more challenges the public schools have to face in educating the students that are there. So I see both things, that going forward, I'm not a supporter of charter school expansion unless there's more fair funding formulas. It's very interesting when you see the public school budget that the amount we cut from librarians and busing was almost similar to what happened when you increased the money that went to the charter school. We're not getting enough reimbursement from the state in terms of what happens with the charter school. And I think that's just unbalanced, and it will just undermine the public schools in the long run. So the charter school is great, but it's not an overall solution to our public school problems. Thank you.
Same question to David.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Cindy, for the question. So just to dispel a couple of things here, misnomer, charter schools are public schools. Now, I don't know why you're not considering them public schools, but they're definitely public schools, and we're fortunate to have school choice here in Malden. As a matter of fact, that brings people into our great city from all around the catchment area that Mystic Valley takes in. And here in Malden, we're lucky that Mystic Valley is one of the top-ranked charter schools in the country. That's just a fact, that if you look at U.S. News and World Report, they're continually ranked there. They're a level 1 school, and they've done such a good job. They graduate kids every year to all the major Ivy League schools. So I think they deliver a high-quality education, and we shouldn't look past that. And then, did you know that a couple of years ago, the Malden School Department reverted close to $1 million back at the end of the year that they didn't use? So this notion that we're not funding the schools enough and there's no money or something, if that was true, they wouldn't have reverted close to $1 million back at the end of the year that they couldn't spend. I mean, if you look at the data, look at the yellow here. In fact, the school department takes up more of the budget than all of the other major departments combined. Some double. It doubles more than police, fire, and DPW. So again, this notion that we're not spending enough on the school department it's just not backed up by the data. Now, with that said, I'm very much in favor as to the first question of our public education system. So I'm not going to raid that. I'm going to continue to support public education here in Malden. But I think it's just a little bit of a misnomer, and it's not supported by the facts that the insinuation that we're not supporting public schools, because we definitely do here in Malden, and I'm going to continue to support them. Thank you.
Okay, same question, Craig.
Thank you. Great question, and it's been kind of a thorn in my side for the last 6 months. Simply, what a great problem to have. We're fighting over, do we have too many schools? I'm a product of mostly Catholic education. I was lucky enough to go to the Immaculate. My parents took me out when Proposition 2.5 came in here. David made a good point, the public schools. I agree with Steve. The funding formula is broken. But there's nobody in this room, unless I can see a state rep or a state senator, that can fix it. And we've been dispelled that we think we can do it at the local level. We're going by the rules. But more importantly, I will go back to vocational education. We spend more money per head in the vote than we do in the charter school. They have a cap. They don't have too many kids with disabilities. But I think we should increase the vocational aid spending. And if we did that, where would it come from? I don't know, I'm not the mayor. But it might come from the school department. So am I picking on the school department because I want to send more kids to become electricians and bricklayers? It's not a bad living today. But again, I'll just go back to my opening statement. It's not a bad problem. We have the choice of schools involved, and I think it's great. Do I think they're all fair and balanced? No. But life's not fair and balanced. And again, those mechanisms are based at the state level, not here. And if one of those schools close, whether it be a charter, the Voc, or the private school, there's nobody up here who has an answer where those kids are going. And this bag of money that's supposedly going to come to us would not even allow us to build one floor of a new school. Somerville did build a new school, high school, over $200 million. Lowell's building one, over $300 million. We could not afford to build another one, and our schools are already packed. So I do think it's broken. We need to get it fixed, but that is not a question any counselor up here can answer or have any change into. Thank you.
Same question to Debbie.
Thank you, Sydney. It's lousy being last on something that's so important to me. So I think the way the question was phrased is charter versus public. Is that somewhat what do we support that? So a charter school is a public school. It does help with our enrollment. It does take by lottery our students from Malden first and then other communities. In Malden, we have homeschool children. We have Catholic schools. We have our wonderful public school, of which one of it is a charter school. So to have a variety and a choice of education for our parents and our guardians, for our children, is the best thing that you could have. You have one chance to educate your children, and that is the choice as a parent and guardian that you have. As far as the educational funding mechanism, I think that's where we failed as a state, not as a council, not as a community. And because of that, it looks unfair. So would I talk against a charter school education? Absolutely not. From an educator's point of view, the window of children in your classroom is closer. So from an educator's point of view, it's easier to educate that child. In our public school, we have such a variety of children's needs that we need to meet. And so, give a yellow card again. So it's sad that we really do need to get our state on board with the right funding for all of our public schools. And I hate to see the back and forth, one against the other. We got to clean that up. So I thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question is going to come from Robert. And Robert, you will be directing that question first to David.
Great. I have maybe a bit biased on this issue. However, as I travel around Malden, I see most senior citizens seem to be quite happy with the place, including myself. And that didn't just happen. Those are the reasons. There are reasons behind that. And involving affordable housing, caretakers, and others. I wonder what you candidates would suggest about keeping them happy in the future.
Yes, thank you, Bob. It's a great question. We're so blessed here in Malden to have one of the best housing authorities in the state, in my opinion. And I'll call him out on air. I'm very fond of him. Steve Finn, I think, and his team does a tremendous job. We have very high-quality public housing here in Malden. And I disagree. I go back briefly to something Steve had mentioned. I don't think it's a fait accompli that we're going under the 10% and jeopardizing 40B at all, because new units are coming on all the time. And, you know, we've got something happening down in Maplewood right now where the old facility down there is being refurbished, and that's going to be a wonderful spectrum of care down there, and that's going to be expanding. You know, some of these other units that we have that are transitioning out of fully competitive rental rates to now more affordable rates. So I'm not so sure we're going to go below the limit. And again, I value all of our members of the community, but certainly I have great respect for my elders. That's how I was raised. We do senior suppers at all the senior housing, so we'll be coming to you if we haven't been to you yet, and I really enjoy that and really believe that it's a vibrant part of our community. Look where we are here in our community and senior center. The programming that goes on here is very robust, so we support our seniors here in Malden, and I'm going to certainly continue to do that. So affordable housing is a big issue. The bottom line is we live in one of the most competitive real estate markets in the world. We do. I mean, it's San Francisco, it's Manhattan, and it's Boston. So we're an extension of Boston, especially with the T here and all the new development you see downtown. Some of those units going for $3,000, $4,000 a month, maybe even more. So what is the definition of affordable there? That's a bit challenging. And I think we've done our best to advocate for the developments that are coming in, having a certain amount of units placed that they can be affordable so that we're not freezing out people who were born here and raised here, who we really want to keep as the fabric of our community. Thank you.
Okay, same question to Craig.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's more of an economic situation, you know, because not only do you want to feel loved and taken care of, but it takes money. So Dave did mention, I mean, we are in a facility. When I first became elected, we were in the basement of the old city hall, and you know, we were getting yelled at as a daily basis by the seniors saying they needed to see light and fresh air, and they were right. So the mayor at the time, Mayor Howard, spent a tremendous amount of money to build a facility we're in right now, and we're pretty proud of it. We have Mystic Valley Elderly Services. We have a new development going on in Forestfield that Council Murphy's bringing in. Affordable is a tough question for everybody. I would love to see more affordable ownership. I think with apartments, we've reached the max. I think apartments are not good. They're not taxed the right way. Most people think that they're taxed at a corporate level. They're taxed at a residential level, and they're really taxing us because the services are there. But more importantly, we need to see growth of young people moving into the city, staying here, spending their money, which creates more revenue, which gives us the ability to give more services. It is simple as that. It is the ability to bring in more revenue to the city to help the seniors, but also we have the ability right now to do tax breaks in certain areas of the city, the waterfront being one of them, to bring in jobs. The burden right now has been shifted on the residential owners in the city of Malden. If we can bring in jobs, we can bring in more revenue. Additionally, we have the Haitian elderly, which just opened up on Commercial Street. We have a new community center for health being opened up on the other end of Commercial Street. So I think there's a lot of services here, but it doesn't happen without revenue, and I think we got to look long-term to fill that void. Thank you.
Question next will go to Debbie.
Thank you, Bob, for that question, and I too am an elder, so this is very important to me. So I have many ideas for this, and it's very near and dear to my heart. Sadly, I lost my parents at a very young age, so I really look upon the senior community with admiration. I just spent a couple hours at 557 Pleasant Street today with our elder community, and I looked in the bulletin board and I said, my goodness, there is so much going on. So where I have tons of ideas, I do want to commend our outreach in Malden for doing a lot in our community, mass senior action for one. But my ideas are, you know, with this beautiful building here, maybe we could get it open over the weekends and offer a couple more programs to help with the health and you know, the yogas and all the great things that go on. I also believe that maybe with our water bills, maybe we can work out some sort of senior discount or something with the water bills that the city controls. So that's our second thing, and there was discussion earlier from my fellow councilors that McFadden Manor is now being rebuilt by a nonprofit called Volunteers of America. So I know that affordability will be there in that building. I look forward to the calculation of where we're at right now with affordability. I mean, we are supposed to be at 10.2%, and we do have a lot of building. So I look forward to that research to see if there is a need for more. Of course, there's always a need for more, and I truly believe that we do need to focus on our seniors as much as we can. So I hope I've answered that. Thank you.
Okay, question will now go to Steve.
Bob, I appreciate the question. I was actually with some seniors both in Malden yesterday and in Gloucester where I work, and one of the things I realized is lacking up in Gloucester is senior action, so maybe I'll talk to you about that. But you know, we have advocacy through senior action, and that has you know, created a great base here, and from past great actions of our city to make sure we have housing. And as I go through and meet and residents in our senior housing, they have affordable quality of life and they have great services. But that can fray. As I'm going through neighborhoods of residents who are transitioning out of their homes, they don't have a lot of great options. And so that's one of the things I would be supportive of inclusionary zoning so that moderate income people can have housing that's affordable. I think the other thing is Malden does not have actively working as a community development corporation to help create affordable housing. Other communities have that. Boston has that. Somerville has it. They've been very successful doing that over a long time. And you know, we worked, and I worked with the coalition, Preserve Malden, to create a fund to have affordable housing so that we can focus and dedicate that working with people to ensure that we have senior housing created as part of that. The other thing I say is that here I have a twofer here. We talk about how to build revenue. I am a strong supporter of safe streets. I've written safe street plans in Somerville and Gloucester. As I go through the community, from our seniors, from Linden Square, I hear our streets are hazardous, cars are crashing into homes, seniors can't cross our streets. We should pass, as a council, a safe streets plan, which this council did not do. And moving forward, those safe streets also attract the young professionals who are going to help build our tax base. So we make our city safer for our seniors and build our tax base. This council didn't do that. We get what they need.
Thank you.
Moving forward on that. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to bring it back to Andrew, who's going to ask the next question. And this question will be directed to Craig.
Massachusetts residents voted to legalize recreational marijuana statewide last year. What are your thoughts on a moratorium for recreational marijuana and zoning for those dispensaries?
I got this question.
You know, I've done a lot of research as a council. First of all, I didn't support the moratorium. The people voted it in. We've tried to put some stuff in ordinance, which I agree with some of the residents that it was a little too restrictive. Right now, the state has put together the full board for the Cannabis Committee. I've talked to Chris Webb, who's the Board of Health Director, numerous times. He actually just sent some guidelines. There's no state, again, I haven't checked in probably a week, that's relatively close to us, if any at all, that has passed any ordinances for that. This use, I think, like any other use, just has to be properly zoned, whether you're selling toilet paper or used cars. It doesn't have to be in every spot of the city. And we just have to make sure that we have the right area, the right zoning. The good thing is we look to the West. The West has had this for many times, and they've had best practice in terms of the size of the building, security measures, the taxes, parking requirements. Denver at one time did require a lobby. They had 30, 40, 50, 60 people waiting up in line with cash, because you can't use credit cards. It became a menace, so now they're required to have like an indoor lobby. So things like this, we take and create best practices. I look forward, when re-elected, to serve with the rest of the council to create what I think would be a reasonable expectation to have controlled marijuana legal in the city of Malden. It does give us a tax revenue, but that's not the only reason to do it. And I look forward, like I said, to building that out, and it should be hopefully a relatively quick and easy fix given the history there and now that the committee is established at the state level. Thank you.
Question will now go to Debbie.
Okay, thank you for that question, and that is something we've been working very hard on in our ordinance committee. Marijuana is pretty much here to stay. It's the new bootlegged kind of thing from many years ago when they brought in alcohol and no one knew what to do with alcohol. So it's the elephant in the room that no one really wants to talk about. But I really look forward to working with a zoning plan in our community where it will fit in Malden. Certainly not near a school, not near a daycare. Certainly we need to take that all into consideration. But, you know, the way I look at it, this is, you know, I'm the oldest one here, and the way I look at it is kids are going to be experimental. So with grandchildren, when they turn teenage years or a little bit older, would I want them to buy a joint from the neighborhood drug dealer, not knowing what he or she are taking? Or would I want that grandchild of mine to be able to go in and have something that is regulated and knows what they're taking? So, you know, that's something that we do need to think about. Again, it's that elephant in the room, and we have to address it. And I have proposed an ad hoc committee in council to include one of our wonderful residents that sits on the state level and help us guide us through that. And it's a tough conversation to have, but I do look forward to moving the ball down in Malden, and of course the benefits for revenue and where we would responsibly put that revenue. So, thank you.
Okay, question goes to Steve.
There we go. Yeah, I definitely want to make sure that we do not use our zoning laws as a de facto prohibition against marijuana. By a small majority, our citizens did vote in favor of that. I also know that there's folks in Malden that are concerned. You know, people have recovering from things, and we have a great group, Malden Overcoming Addiction, thinking about how people who have substance abuse issues deal with things. So I think we want to be respectful and deliberate. So I think that's the type of thing I'm supportive of moving forward with this. We need to be deliberate, make sure it fits in our community. You know, I agree we should not have this in every neighborhood business area, our squares and that type of thing. We should, you know, find the right place to have this. You know, one of the things that's interesting to me, I do work with public health and look at public health data. It's interesting to me when you look at often high school students, they often smoke tobacco less than marijuana. So it tells me that public health approach is a way to go forward here to educate kids about what marijuana you know, effect it has on their body and that type of thing, rather than a prohibition mode. So I am supportive of working to see that Malden does have the facility. Thank you very much.
Okay. Question will now go to David.
Drew, thank you for the question. And it's funny, I think we talked a couple of weeks ago about this. My message is proceed with caution. At the end of the day, marijuana is still illegal on the federal level. So I think we need to be cognizant of that. We need to be mindful of that. You know, mark me as very concerned about drug use. Now, I'm not comparing this to the opioid thing, although that is a crisis of epidemic proportion that is ripping apart families and our so much tragedy on our city level, state level, nationwide. It's devastating people. So I wouldn't want to see anything inhibit the strides that we've made towards now coming to terms with our opioid problems and challenges around that. So again, I think we need to proceed with caution. I actually favor the approach we took towards the medical marijuana piece, where we do have a zone set up for that, and I favor the policies, procedures, and controls that are put in place as safeguards for the medical marijuana piece. I really think that those are more robust, and I hope that the Cannabis Control Commission actually puts those in place. And I would be in favor of sponsoring a letter or a resolve from the council to ask them to maybe look at some of those policies, procedures, and controls that are in place. Because think about it, the medical marijuana law went into effect years earlier, and we still don't even really have many of those dispensaries. So there's many things you want to be the first of. Like, we'd like to be the first one to get Amazon. They're going to be relocated. We'd like to be the first on that. We'd like to be the first to add a new school or a new business. I don't think you want to be, this isn't something you want to be first on. I think we need to proceed with caution. Let's look for as many best practices as we can, because safety is my most important thing, and I want to make sure we're keeping our people safe. Thank you.
So just doing a time check. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question. So I'd like for Sydney to ask that question, but I was wondering if the three of you would want to confer on what you think that last important question should be for candidates.
In the city of Everett, and I believe in the city of Revere, has brought in a plan to have all students have free lunches. I was wondering, what is the likelihood of Malden having a universal free lunch program? If so, how will a free lunch program be carried out in the future?
Okay, so this last question is going to go to you first, Debbie.
So, thanks for that question. Free lunch program, how wonderful would that be? As a mother, you know how many times I forgot lunches, and I mean that's a great idea. And I think first and foremost, how would we fund it? That would be my first thought. But I think it's a wonderful program, and I also followed Michelle Obama, the First Lady, with her healthy program for children eating healthy in schools. I sat on a committee when my daughter was at Pope John High School, and we revamped all the school lunches to reflect healthy options. So first thought is, how would we fund it? That would be great if we could identify a pocket filled with money to be able to do that. And yes, I think it would be wonderful, because it would take away that angst from the guardians and the parents. It would also bridge the students as to financially who brings the better lunch. I'm sure that's a problem. And the allergy situation that I have also heard about. So I would be in support of that if we could find funding, and I think it's a wonderful initiative, and look forward to working on something like that. Thank you.
Same question to Steve.
One of the things I do work on, the Mass in Motion program that Mayor Wong participated in Fitchburg, a component of that talks about food insecurity. So making sure that people have access to healthy food and affordable food. So I work with food pantries and strategies there. One of the things we should look at with our schools is that program. If your school has a certain amount of low and moderate income students, then you can be eligible to have a full school. My granddaughter over in Somerville, her school has that program. So we should be making sure our schools are aware of that federal program that allows, if there's a certain percentage of low and moderate income students in your school, that then that whole school, the kids can be eligible, and making sure the parents are signed up there. That's primarily how that works out. When I was on the school committee, we made sure we worked with the school department and our food service there to make sure we kept the food affordable, and made sure that we had a public hearing on increasing cost of food, that parents are aware of that. So, I mean, I think certainly that I think the first step is to see, can we become fully funded in the federal programs that allow this type of thing to happen. So I think that's the first step, and then we can go from there. So thank you.
Okay, next will be David.
Thank you, Sydney, for the question. I was prepared for a lot of questions after this one. So I mean, this seems like more of a school committee issue, but I'll take a shot. So I mean, maybe to Council Spatafore's point, maybe we could get some vocational stuff going on and have some children and just school students preparing meals or something like that. Maybe bring that back, home ec back, or something to that effect. I do know that Malden already has a significant amount of free reduced school lunches. We do take advantage of that federal program quite significantly. And as a matter of fact, I think we take advantage of it just as much, if not more, than many of the communities that surround us. And a large amount of that is driven by socioeconomic factors. So there are significant parts of the Malden population that are at or below the poverty level. So I'm very cognizant of that. So I haven't heard this as a major issue, but certainly if the community is interested, I'm all ears. Let's figure out how we can solve this, because I want our students to succeed. I really do. I think we're graduating so many children now and students now that are going into Ivy League schools, and education is really one of the strong points of our city. So whatever we can do to support that, I'm going to be in favor of, as long as we're making sure that it's the best deal for everybody in the city. The students, the taxpayers, and really the whole community, and not just making it a decision based on a small group of people who maybe want a free lunch, if you will. You know what I mean? So if people need it, then let's provide that resource so that they can be successful in school. I'm all in favor of that. But maybe, yeah, let's bring back home ec, or let's introduce some vocational program that can be creative. I'm prepared to work with the school committee and the administration to see if we can do something creative around that. Thank you.
Okay, Greg.
Thank you, Sydney, and great question. Not something we do every day in the council level. My wife is actually a school nurse, and unfortunately tells me these horror stories where children are walking in either hungry, haven't slept, or they're eating Doritos for breakfast. So the first and foremost thing is I think we have to make sure the schools become healthier choices in terms of fresh vegetables, and giving the kids a good meal. Now, whether that's free to everybody, that is obviously the question. One thing that was mentioned here was the ability to have safer streets, and the residents that I talked to, while they might be designed not to their expectations, the traffic in the city and the speeding has become a major menace. Our traffic enforcement numbers are down almost $600,000 a year, and our parking revenue, while up, is not where it should be. Maybe we should take some of that revenue and give it to kids who need a meal. And I have no problem with that. The other choice too, if I heard, is they cut sports. They've cut all these other things at further cost. But having a child who's hungry, to me, should take priority day one. Now, where you get the money, that's always a tough question. But I say you enforce the rules and regulations we have, because that is a big quality of life. And I've been on the soapbox yelling about parking, because a lot of the parking problems, speeding problems, are not residents of Malden. They're people coming into Malden using it as a parking lot. And why don't we start going after them and enforcing our rules and regulation? I'm sure 10 or 15% of that new revenue would be more than ample to feed the kids a couple apples and maybe a healthy lunch. So that's the approach I would take.
Okay, thank you very much for those great questions. We've covered everything from school, economic development, housing, seniors, public safety. So now we're going to go into the closing remarks, your opportunity to make your final pitch for the voters. Now the order will be as follows. It will be the reverse order of the opening remarks. So candidate 4 will go first, followed by 3, 2, and 1. So that will be Debbie first, followed by Craig, David, and Steve. So each of you will have 3 minutes to say your final remarks. Beginning with Debbie.
Thank you. I offer my sincere appreciation to all that has made this event possible. Each and every one of you are valuable and play a very special role in our community and our Malden. I especially want to thank all the candidates and those elected officials that I've had the pleasure of working with. My campaign began in January. Side by side with my champions, we collected 607 nomination signatures and called and knocked thousands of doors. We posted complimentary Armed Forces Day ice cream socials, lunches and dinners at our housing facilities, and even one included belly dancing. Again, time spent is the best gift of all. I've met amazing new residents, rekindled old friendships, and shared many smiles together. Your feedback is so valuable to me. Public service takes dedication. It takes hard work, tenacity, compromise, and tough decisions. Not always do we agree with one another. However, through the process, we collaborate. My hope moving forward is to revisit the opportunity of public commentary and affordable housing. Identify locations for the value of our cannabis dispensaries. Pass a demolition delay and facade ordinance. Push for single-stream recycling. Embrace our diversity community with technology that allows language choice. And protect the value of our Malden property with only efficient, resident-friendly development. I appreciate the hard work of candidate Winslow. I appreciate Senior Councilor Craig Spatafort and his entire family for all they've done for our Malden, and Councilor David D'Arcangelo for his procedural guidance. With 12 days to go, but who is counting? As your at-large councilor, it is my hope that I've earned your valuable vote. I love this community, its connectivity, its passion, and its challenges. And I still have so much more to do to guide Malden through this amazing transformation. I truly imagine Malden taking the lead in the state with our property values, our business community, our residents, and our educational offerings. In closing, I leave you with my very special quote from Dr. Seuss. Oh, the places you'll go. Today's your day, Malden. Your mountain is waiting. You're on your way. Thank you for your partnership and your vote, Debbie DiMaria, November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll have closing statements from Craig.
Thank you. As I look back, humbly and been graced by your honor for serving you for council so long, I am more determined to apply what I've learned during all my years. I am excited about the course Malden is heading, and despite a few rough patches, we've worked in an atmosphere of mutual respect and civility. We've actually managed to agree on a lot and get a lot done. And when we do disagree, we don't always get bogged down. And I want to thank every member of the City Council, the school committees, the various departments for their hard work and dedication to the city for the many years. I am determined to make Malden work for all the residents. I started this job with the great benefit of two great mayors and great councilors before me. And as I look across the table and see so many other people in the community willing to give, it is truly astonishing. So together we set out to achieve our goals. We've accomplished so much in my time here. We have a new downtown, we have a new city hall, a new police station. We've passed an ordinance to put 7.5% of our budget away. We have a new senior center. We've created one of the largest municipal tax gatherers with the meals tax, which helped fund not only 3, but 4 new parks. It helped the completion of the bike path. It bought millions of dollars of DPW, and we're still not done. We've also just recently got an energy grant, which I'm very proud of, which was a total of $300,000, which was putting a new LED streetlight in everybody. And again, we are not done. I'm here to talk about the future of the city of Malden and our roadmap ahead. And the news out of City Hall every day reinforces a healthy reality we've known for quite some time. Local governments will not have to continue to do more with less. And Maldonians once again have to be looked towards to help lift us up and forge a path. And we find that path forward because this is the place that great thinkers and innovators from all over the world, across the country. We have Irish, Chinese, Italian, African Americans, Haitians, Latins, gays, lesbians, transgenders, hippies, physicists, and technology people here. They all came to Malden. They came from thousands of places and speak more than 100 different languages and bring different perspectives. Together we've all built a place, no other place like this on earth. Malden, one of the most diverse cities in the state and if not the world. And today, more than ever, Malden is uniquely poised to innovate and invent the future right here, right now, by capitalizing on our greatest resource, which is our people. Let's be candid, the legacy of redevelopment is not always great, but I think Malden is poised for greatness, and I want to continue that path. I ask respectfully for one of your 3 votes November 7th, and to continue this great journey ahead together. Thank you.
Our next closing statement will be from David.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to my wife, Lisa, and all my daughter, Isabella, my family and friends. As Debbie said, 12 more days and I'll get to see you again. We've been out almost every night, I think. So thank you to Andrew, Sydney, Robert, Lisa, Mayor Wong, Ron, MATV, Brian, everybody else who helped put this on, Mass Senior Action Council, my fellow candidates, thank you so much. Most importantly, thank you at home, the residents of Malden. You're the boss. I love Malden. I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to bring my years of experience in public service to bear for you. I have a passion for public service and really trying to improve the human condition. Here where I live, I love Malden. I'm trying to make it better. I'm a positive person. And I really appreciate how this campaign has been kept positive. We're trying to move Malden forward for the benefit of you, the people of Malden. So you're the boss. Please call me anytime. My personal cell phone, 781-789-4580. Go to my website, david@davidfrommalden.com. That's my email, david@davidfrommalden.com. Come to my event. We're having a Salute Our Heroes event this Saturday at the DAV from 4 to 6 to really honor all of those in service to our country. So really, Malden's a great city. I'm trying to make it better. I love public service. It's my passion. And I hope that came through tonight. So please take me up on my offer. Call me anytime that I can be of service to you. 781-789-4580. So thank you again to everybody who was involved here. I really enjoyed being here. I'm asking for your vote again. It's David D'Arcangelo from Council at-Large. Thank you.
Our final closing statement of the night will be from Steve.
All right, thank you, everybody. I thank the panelists, Andrew, Sydney, and Bob for taking the time to ask these great questions, and Mayor Wong to come from your busy schedule to moderate here, as well as the current councilors. I thank you for your service. Having served on the school committee and been in public service a long time, I really appreciate both the effort that happens at the council and in neighborhood meetings, so I really appreciate all the work here. I'm really want to thank that my wife, Helen, who's in the audience. We've been in Malden since 1989 and owned our home here in Maplewood since 1991. We've raised our granddaughters here. We love Malden. And because of that, we committed to work for 25 years to get our local bike trail to happen. And we work with a lot of residents. I mean, my proudest thing about that trail is that it's being embraced by so many people in the community. And I really want to work further with the community, make sure that we partner with the community and really leverage the great spirit in this community. It's going to take a lot of work. It goes beyond dialogue. We have to make sure that new residents and old residents are able to influence our government and work together to go forward. Voting for Steve Winslow for Council at-Large means you're going to have someone with 30 years of experience in public service. I've worked to take the lead out of gasoline and other toxic chemicals out of our air and water. I've helped create local trails and improve parks across the state. You're going to have a councilor who's passionate about planning out and working for safe streets, because we need that from Linden Square all the way to the Fells Way. You're going to have a councilor who's going to lead efforts for affordable housing and creating an age-friendly community so people can raise their families here and also stay and enjoy their golden years. You're going to have a councilor who supports our public schools, because as I mentioned, we don't invest in our children's education. We're not going to build a better future for Malden. As a councilor, I'm going to welcome your opinions. I want to make you feel comfortable coming to the city, however you are coming there. If you want to speak to me one-on-one, my cell phone is 781-738-2825, Winslow from Malden. But I'm going to welcome you right here in this room. So you don't have to know my cell phone. You can just show up at City Council. I'll be willing to listen to you. But I really appreciate it. It's been a great race. I'm happy to be serving you, to be a challenger. I would be very humbled to be your councilor at large, so ask that on November 7th, you consider and vote for Steve Winslow for Councilor at Large. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I get to have the last word. Thank you, Rick.
There you have it, folks. Steve Winslow, Debbie DeMaria, David D'Arcangelo, Craig Spadafora, your candidates for Malden City Council at Large. And let's give another round of applause for a wonderful panel here. Thank you, Malden TV, Ron, Brian, the rest of the team for not only airing this, but also organizing this. Great job. And of course, you, the audience at home, don't forget to vote November 7th. Thank you and good night.